I bought 90 acres in North Georgia for one thing: quiet. Real quiet. The kind that settles into your bones after a lifetime of noise. But that quiet ended the morning a drone hovered outside my bedroom window, close enough to see the curtains move. By nightfall, I caught two men from the neighboring subdivision digging in my woods, trying to bury evidence that would ruin me. They figured an old widower living alone would fold. They didn't know I spent 30 years as county sheriff, and that the shotgun I racked in the dark was me showing mercy. My name is Harlan Reed. After 3 decades wearing the badge, breaking up bar fights, serving papers on folks who'd rather shoot the messenger, fishing the same fool out of the same creek every holiday weekend, something in me went still. Not peaceful, just empty. When I walked the old Whitaker farm for the first time, the smell of pine sap and red clay hit me like coming home after a long war. 90 acres of hills, overgrown fields, a tired farmhouse, barns leaning with age, and a pond murky enough to hide regrets. It was run down. I was run down. Perfect match. That first year, I poured myself into fixing it. New roof on the barn, fresh siding, straightened the weather vane even if it still groaned in the wind. Dredged the pond, rerouted the spring runoff, rebuilt the porch so it didn't list like a drunk. Every hammer swing, every post hole dug, felt like stitching up old wounds. Mornings I'd cook eggs and bacon grease the way my dad showed me, pour coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in, and sit on that porch listening to nothing but cicadas warming up and the creek murmuring half a mile away. For the first time since I pinned on the badge, I slept through the night without waiting for the phone to ring. Then the machines came. One morning the air carried the roar of earth movers instead of birds. I walked to the ridge and saw a raw red scar across the far hillside, survey stakes, graded roads, frames of identical houses rising in neat rows. At the entrance stood a carved wooden arch, Willow Creek Estates. Homeowners Association included, of course. I didn't lose sleep over it. My deed was older than most of the buyers' mortgages, and my land sat outside their gates. Figured we'd stay neighbors at arm's length. I figured wrong. It started subtle, the way real trouble usually does. A white golf cart gliding along my fence line. 2 occupants in pressed khakis and matching polo shirts, clipboards in hand, staring at my tractor, my goats, my barns like they were cataloging violations. I raised a hand in greeting. They looked away and drove off. A few days later, a small drone skimmed low over the barnyard, hovering, tilting, filming. Then I caught a man in crisp clothes kneeling by my property corner, poking the soil with a metal probe. When he saw me coming, he sprinted to his cart and disappeared. The carts came more often. Always watching, never speaking. I've stared down enough liars and thieves in my career to recognize when someone is building a case. They weren't admiring the scenery. They were hunting for ammunition. One afternoon, I stepped out of the workshop and found a young man in tactical-style clothing, vest lettered Willow Creek Security, filming my equipment with a large camera and body cam. I asked if I could help him. He straightened up and announced he was conducting a perimeter integrity assessment because my machinery posed a potential hazard. I told him plainly he was trespassing. He reached for his radio. I took one step forward and used the voice that used to make drunk drivers suddenly sober. He backed away fast, mumbling into the radio as he fled. I called Sheriff Tom Harlan. Good man, no kin, and by the time his deputy arrived, the intruder had vanished. But I knew then this wasn't random nosiness. A week later, I opened the barn at dawn and surprised another one inside, filming serial numbers on tools and fuel cans. This fellow had the full uniform and enough gear to play commando. I explained calmly that he was committing a felony on private property. His bravado lasted about 10 seconds. He bolted, camera bouncing against his chest, tires spitting gravel as he raced back toward Willow Creek. Then Evelyn Mercer arrived. She pulled up in a gleaming white SUV, designer boots crunching my gravel like it offended her. Sunglasses large enough to hide judgment, clipboard held like a royal scepter. A nervous security guard trailed her, and a golf cart with flashing lights brought up the rear. She introduced herself as the Willow Creek Standards Committee Chair and handed me a document claiming the HOA had temporary jurisdiction over adjacent lands for safety monitoring, complete with an official-looking sheriff's seal and signature. The signature belonged to a man who'd retired 8 years earlier. I dialed Tom right there. He arrived in 10 minutes, examined the paper, and informed Evelyn the seal was obsolete and the document worthless. He suggested she leave before he decided to investigate forgery. She drove off promising this wasn't over. Later, over coffee on my porch, Tom told me the forgery was too polished for Evelyn alone. Someone with money and access to old templates was bankrolling this. He asked for patience and evidence. He wanted the head, not the mouth. One windy afternoon, a drone wobbled overhead, clipped a branch, and plunged into my pond. I waded in, hauled it out, and dried the memory card. What I found turned my stomach. Hours of high-resolution footage of my house at night, my grandkids skipping stones during their visit, me changing a shirt after fixing a busted pipe, private moments no stranger had any right to. Worse was a PDF titled Phase 2 Expansion. My entire farm was overlaid with proposed streets, sewer lines, and luxury lots. My pond was highlighted as a selling point. Exclusive water feature, rustic privacy with modern HOA oversight. Handwritten notes discussed the current owner's likely resistance and contingency strategies required. The drone's GPS logs pointed to a gaudy mansion inside Willow Creek owned by Blake Townsend, mid-20s, mirrored sunglasses, the swagger of a kid who'd never been told no, son of Circuit Judge Arthur Townsend. That same week, a nervous voice called from an unknown number. Caleb Norris, former Willow Creek patrol guard. We met after dark at an old river pull-off. Hands shaking, he told me Evelyn started with routine gate duty, but later ordered them to fabricate violations on my land. Film fuel storage, look for illegal burning, even plant contaminated soil to trigger state inspection and force a sale. Caleb refused and got his hours slashed. He said Blake flew most drones for bonus pay, believing his father's robe made him bulletproof. Caleb agreed to write a full statement. 3 nights later, my motion alerts lit up at 2 a.m. I slipped outside with the shotgun and moved silent through the trees. In a small clearing, I found 2 hooded figures digging beside a sealed 5-gallon drum marked hazardous waste. I hit them with a blinding flashlight, racked the shotgun once, sharp as a judge's gavel, and let my dogs announce their displeasure. The men dropped the shovel, hands high, begging. I told them they had one chance: run and never return. They crashed through the brush like scared deer, leaving the drum, the half-dug hole, and crystal-clear trail cam footage behind. Tom arrived at sunrise. He examined the scene, watched the video, and called it attempted felony sabotage. We agreed to let the diggers flee so the evidence trail would lead higher. Days later, state environmental inspectors showed up responding to multiple complaints about my operation. I was ready. Independent lab tests, logs, photos proving everything clean and compliant. When they noticed fresh-turned soil near the pond, and I played the attempted planting video, their posture changed from inspection to investigation. They left with samples, the drum, and a promise to pursue whoever filed false reports. Leaks started. Blake Townsend walked into the district attorney's office with his attorney and a thumb drive full of incriminating emails, payment records, and a voicemail from Evelyn pushing him to make the old man crack. He cooperated fully for a reduced charge. That was the break Tom needed. One bright morning, Tom and deputies arrested Evelyn Mercer on the clubhouse steps while she was dressing down a resident over Christmas lights. Charges were read aloud: forgery of official documents, conspiracy to commit fraud, criminal trespass by proxy, attempted environmental tampering, and conspiracy to seize private property. She screamed betrayal when she heard Blake had turned. Residents watched in silence as their self-appointed queen was cuffed and led away. Trial was swift. Every email, map, video, payment, and testimony lined up perfectly. The judge sentenced Evelyn to 12 years without parole and placed Willow Creek Estates under state receivership for audit and reform. The reign of fines and fear was over. 6 months later, the land has healed better than I expected. Grass thick and green where tires once tore it. New leaves on trees that witnessed the worst of it. Clear water in the pond again. Former Willow Creek folks stop by now and then with peach cobbler or just to say sorry. I accept the dessert and the apology both. The developer wrote a large check to avoid deeper trouble. I replace my old tractor and save the rest for whatever comes next. Blake Townsend picks up highway trash 5 days a week in an orange vest. Caleb Norris works steady at the co-op and sleeps without nightmares. I built a new gate, heavy steel, welded solid. and hung a sign, "I burn myself. Private property. No HOA authority." These mornings I sit on the same porch with the same black coffee, listening to the creek and the wind in the pines. The quiet I came here for has returned, deeper now because I know it's defended. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just settles in and stays. What about you? Ever run into an HOA or neighbor who thought they could redraw your boundaries? Where do you draw the line between defending your rights and escalating things? Would you have waited for the law the way I did, or handled it differently out there in the woods that night? I read every comment and respect every viewpoint. Share yours below. These stories matter because they happen to regular folks every day. Word count approximate 1,850. Character count approximate 10,800 including spaces. Wait, the request was for about 50,000 characters. My draft is only about 10K. The tool showed 9K for a shorter version. To reach 50K characters, roughly 8,000 to 10,000 words, I need to expand significantly with more descriptive passages, internal thoughts, detailed dialogues, extended scenes, backstory flashbacks, sensory details, and slower pacing to build tension. I need to flesh out every scene, describe weather, smells, sounds, emotions, memories triggered, detailed conversations, step-by-step actions, multiple high points with cliffhanger-like breaks in narration. Since this is a narrated story for YouTube, use repetitive phrases for rhythm, rhetorical questions to engage, pauses and tension. To hit the length, aim for novel-like detail while keeping the same plot. Structure the response as the full long story. No emojis, no special characters beyond standard punctuation. End with the invitation to comment on violence, injustice, property rights, etc. Final response is the story itself.